Good evening, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you show?
Yes.
Good. Well, that's splendid. My name is Brian Follett, and I've been the president of our society now for about 15 years, I guess, or perhaps longer. It is actually my role normally to chair this meeting, so it's in that sense useful. Though, as you know, though it is my last chairing since I'm standing down as president and being replaced. Not standing down in high dudgeon, far from it, but I think the issue is how to renew the society. So let's take the agenda, and this may turn out to be a significantly shorter meeting than we had all expected. Apologies. I don't know whether you've received any apologies at all, Olga.
Just a few, yes.
Oh, well, we'll take those as read. Secondly,
Kevin Bond.
Kevin Bond went to town this morning on Chiltern Line, normally one of the most reliable railway systems in the country, but appears to be having a hiccup today. And so his dominance of the agenda has been sort of rather rudely interrupted, and others of us will now step in. I have to say this AGM is normally a formal event. In other words, it's really to take the annual report and the finances. And those are the two vital things, plus a couple of votes on the financial part. The first thing, though, the minutes of the last meeting we held. I wrote those following the AGM on the 20th of May 2019. You remember that? That was back in the halcyon days, where the only thing we had to fear was the stupidity of Brexit. That has occurred along with a rather vicious bug. There's nothing I note in it that has not been dealt with subsequently. I don't know whether anyone has any points they would like to raise or not. There being universal silence, may I ask that we accept these reports as they have been prepared? Thank you very much indeed. I think that the only thing I notice on those minutes is poor Tim Cook, who had just arrived as the chief executive of the Birthplace Trust. And that has proved to be an exceedingly difficult job under the circumstances, and we wish him well in getting it back into running. The next is the chairman's report. Now, he's not here unless dear Kevin is available or not. But he has chaired us, and what we have fundamentally tried to do is, with Lindsay driving the technology part and the drive, and also Olga, our invaluable secretary, we've had a number of virtual Zoom meetings of various sorts, and the committee has met quite regularly, actually. I guess every 3 months or so. Is that roughly right, Olga?
Every 7-8 weeks.
Every 8 weeks. Well, you see, we've been busy, really. And there have been a lot of things to discuss. I think if I could raise them, they are the obvious concerns on the developments in the town, which were led off, of course, by the exquisite reformation of Bridge Street, which is still there, covered in cones, and little else seems to be happening, unfortunately and tragically. We've lost a lot of shops, though they will perhaps come back. And the district council has been active in trying to get money to develop the recreation ground. in particular what was called the Riverside Project between an area called the Fisherman's Car Park and Seven Meadows Road. That has led to much discussion as to the wisdom of doing this, but as far as I know, Lindsay, it's proceeding in one form or another.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Right, and there's a hope that there'll be some nature areas on the upriver side of the main bridge, the Clopton Bridge into town. I'm mostly concerned by noticing how much of the recreation ground is being sort of turned into recreation areas rather than green grass. But I guess that life is not simple for anybody, and the town has suffered quite a lot financially. The Town Council has established a working group to look at the neighbourhood plan, and that proceeds, and we have been well served on the general part of that, notably with John Scampion's efforts. But perhaps the biggest thing we did was a great navel gazing exercise at which we tried to find out, both from ideas from you, the members, from other town groups like ourselves up in the north and in down into the southwest, and all of us were suffering the main central problems. But I think what was decided, and it would have been, I suspect, what the incoming, or Kevin would have said in his words at the end, that what we needed to do was relaunch the society. And I'll come back to that at the end when I say just a few words, if I dare, about the way forward for the future. Has anybody got any points they would like to raise about the chairman's report, or any issues that concern them? Because this is the moment to do it if you would like. Everybody's quiet. Okay. Well, in that case, we move forward. I do hope that our treasurer is with us. John, are you with us?
You're muted, John.
Not now.
Ah, there's the man himself. And we owe a considerable amount to our outgoing treasurer, who has not only looked after the finances, but before the resurrection of a new program secretary, who's come back to save us, Ian Fradgley, has devoted a lot of time to trying to sort out one of the great problems we have in our society, incredible as it is, and that is the membership list. Who's paying? Oh, who they are, where they live, how do they want to be contacted? And quite a few things have happened inevitably in these things. People who have paid for years, but we're not even sure, frankly, whether they're still with us anymore. But he has done that. But the particular importance of this meeting is to take the accounts. And can I hand over to you, please, John?
Okay. Well, the report and accounts, as signed off by the independent examiner, have been circulated. There isn't really very much to say, because we didn't really do a great deal last year because we couldn't. So you can see from the accounts that how limited our activities were. We did have some formal presentations in between lockdowns, but that's about it. In the previous year, we had spent quite a lot of money on the Falcon restoration and on the pavement plaques, but not so much happened on that in the last 12 months, again, because it wasn't really possible to do it. couple of points just for clarification in case anybody's not clear. The independent examiner, which in the past has been Guard Doyley, who've done it for years, as you will have seen, is now Burgess and Bullock. Now, in fact, that's not a radical change. The sole partner of Guard Doyley decided to retire, and so the business was taken over by Burgess and Bullock. So there is continuity there. It's just a different name. Okay. So that was really it. The following on from what Brian said, actually, one gap there is in the accounts is the gift aid. The gift aid figure you see in 2020 was, of course, related to 2019 because we apply on a fiscal year basis, government fiscal year, not on our accounting year. So that 407 quid received in 2020 actually relates to the previous year. We haven't been able to do it because this time because we had a new membership secretary who unfortunately then decided to relocate to Hampshire. And I never met him actually. All our connections were by phone and email. I have spoken to Ian Fradgley, who's now taken over the role, and he's got all that I have. And I've already told Ian that I'm very happy to help him because I think it'll be a two-person job. So whether my successor will have enough local knowledge to do it or whether I will help Ian, it's not a problem. He only lives up the road from me anyway, so it's not a problem. So that's really one hangover that has to be sorted. Other than that, we haven't really had a great deal of activity in the last 12 months for obvious reasons. But if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
It can be remarkably inhibitory at times from Zoom.
Is that because they're everybody's muted and so they can't say anything?
Well, I don't know. I think they would wave their hands, and I'm sure Lindsay's got a grip on it. I'd like to thank you personally, John. We've worked together for many years now, and both of us are disappearing. But without a good treasurer, we would be in trouble. I note, if you look on the papers for the meeting, that our bank position on the 1st of April was that we had 13,500. And that includes some subscriptions. But fundamentally, the finances of the society are strong.
Yes.
And you're leaving us in good shape.
And we have discussed supporting John in his plaques. And in fact, as you know, probably we had a meeting with Ben Carr last week to talk about plaques at school and Holy Trinity and Dower House and places like that, which John Scampion would probably enlarge on. But we have made internally an estimate of support that we can give if necessary to get the remaining ones done that we want to do.
Right, thank you very much. We do need formally to accept the accounts as they've been presented to us. So may I put it to us that we do accept the accounts? Do I have support for that view?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, those who showed. And I believe, John, that you are recommending Burgess and Bullock continue as our independent examiners for another year, and we have to vote on that.
Yeah.
Can we agree for that? Done. Now, given the absence of Kevin, I think we might spend just a little time, not a lot, on the annual reports. We've got 4 of them on the events, that Lindsay has organised. On transport, which John has been doing for John Deegan has been doing for some years. Planning, well, we can't do much about that, but John will talk about the Historic Spine Joint Working Group. Now, normally, to avoid this degenerating into long diatribes, we tended to take these as read. But on this occasion, I wonder if I could quickly work through and first of all ask Lindsay whether he would like to say anything about his enlightened programme of events that he has put on nobly with speakers by the Zoom method.
Yes, thank you, Brian. I'm happy to look back at last year. This is the calendar year, of course, for 2020. And we went into it with a full programme of monthly meetings at intended to be at the traditional venue of the Shakespeare Centre in Henley Street. And we held the first two in the normal way, but then we were overtaken by the coronavirus and the lockdown. And so not only could we not congregate together, but the Birthplace Trust, in its wisdom, completely closed the Shakespeare Centre, and it's been closed ever since. So that meant that the meetings that we had planned for March, April, May and June didn't actually take place. And there was a good deal of soul searching over the summer as to what we should do. We hoped it might be possible to resume in the normal way, but of course it wasn't. And so finally, in October, we conducted a survey of all members and gathered the consensus that everyone definitely wanted to proceed. And so we decided to adopt this medium of Zoom, which seemed to appear out of nowhere very opportunely at the beginning of all this. And so starting in November of last year and continuing to the present, we've been having monthly presentations by Zoom. So I think they've been successful. We've also been recording them, and I've been placing an edited version on our channel on YouTube. And it's a relatively easy process to do, but it means that the 30-minute talk in each month's presentation is now available for download, both by members and indeed by anyone in the public who might be interested. And that gives us more visibility and more outreach. I've also been developing the website over this time, adding more content to it and making it more interesting, I think. And to the extent we're now getting over 3,000 hits per month, every month. That means over 100 per day. And I'm really keen to turn those hits into some more useful outreach for the society to help us to engage better with people of Stratford and to get our message across better. Anyhow, if any of you have suggestions as to speakers or topics for meetings or things to go onto the website or anything else that we might do as a society, please let me know, because we're here for the members and for the good of the town.
Thank you, Lindsay. Now, many of us have seen the virtual lectures, and I think we owe a thanks to all those who've put them on, to Lindsay for organising it, and also those who are prepared to give a virtual lecture, which is not as simple as it may sound, of course, when you actually sit down and do it, though you can opt. Any thoughts anyone has out there? If not, we then move on to transport. And I know John is with us, or he was, yes. Ah, there he is. with his wonderful backdrop of Debenhams, I'm afraid now closed. But John, you're also actually planning to leave us and being replaced. But would you like to say anything about the transport issues in the town? About Victory?
Thank you, Brian. You caught me rather cold, I'm afraid. So I was expecting the report to be taken as read. I wrote it so long ago, what seems so long ago, just 3 months now, during which time I've got married and had a wedding celebration, and my mind has been on other things. So you caught me a bit cold there. So I spent the last couple of minutes desperately trying to find it amongst my files and can't find it. No, so I've got nothing to add really. It was other than it was essentially a not very interesting year in the sense that no major changes have taken place. Obviously, the COVID restrictions have come in, and I personally found them very encouraging because the restrictions on High Street and Bridge Street seem to me to conform with what the town neighbourhood plan was proposing, and certainly what many of us believe will be a good idea, which is to, and have thought would be a good idea for a long time. What their status is not entirely clear to me, so I'm hoping that the High Street will remain a shared space, or whatever the current terminology is, when the restrictions are lifted. And I'm hoping that this is an opportunity to do something, improve the environment for pedestrians in particular on Bridge Street. But I think we've just got to wait and see on that. The Town Transport Group is addressing these issues. We're a co-sponsor of that group, along with the Town Council and the what do you call it? The Stratford, the bid company, and we are represented on it. Jan is our other representative. Jan Tracy is our other representative on that group, but I will come off it as a representative of the Stratford Society anyway. As I'm backing up this particular role with the society. I mean, the only other stuff I think that's really cropped up recently is that what many of us had hoped had been the demise of the proposed Southwestern Relief Road associated with the Long Marston development doesn't seem to have disappeared in its entirety, because a planning application has recently been submitted, which I think in essence is the same as the one that was already there. And I haven't had the opportunity to go into the detail of it. But that, I think we were hoping would disappear, because when eventually the Highways Agency and Warwickshire County Council and Worcestershire County Council got their act together, it did seem that they were asking some very pertinent questions, essentially about what benefit this would bring, to which the answer, I'm sure, is a fairly limited benefit. But anyway, that's where we are. I will try and answer questions on transport if I can, if there are any. So there we are. Thank you, Brian.
Any particular questions people have got? I have one. John, when is Bridge Street going to be cleared up?
Well, I don't know. It is still a temporary arrangement, but hopefully somebody at the County Council will get a grip on this and provide the sort of attractive, pedestrian-friendly environment and cycle-friendly environment that I think the town centre deserves. And that is something that I think we should continue, we and the transport group should continue to try and focus efforts on. The worry, I've got to say, Brian, is that as the COVID restrictions disappear, there will be some pressure to restore the status quo ante, which I think is not an attractive solution for pedestrians and cyclists in the town centre.
No, but we're stuck between two places, aren't we, at the moment? we've got a population moving through the town, which is a small proportion of what it used to be when we actually did manage to survive with the old-fashioned system. And I do think that through you, Chairman, incoming Chairman, I hope Lindsay, that Lindsay and Kevin can take this up, because it is now getting into mid-July and it does no credit to our town to have Bridge Street in the state it's in, with cones all over it and artificial look as if it's being dug up. I'm very disappointed with the ability or lack of it for the town council, district council, county council, not to realise that something fairly drastic needs to be done. And I would have thought it would have been relatively quick to have cleaned up the area at the very least. But I'm sure I'm probably alone in my concerns on that. Steve.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question for John, really. I know the amount of flack, and Ian, I see, is on the call, that the town and district council got from traders, from shop owners, at the time that the sort of barriers were first put up at the start of the pandemic. Earache is an understatement. And we've got this problem of what looks on the surface like a dying town centre, or not possibly a dying town centre, but a town centre in course of conversion to an oversized restaurant. Just how do you think we can reconcile that, John, with laudable aims in terms of environment and movement of pedestrians? We're not going to get many pedestrians if there are no shops to go to. How do you think you can square that circle?
I think actually this is a challenge for the town centre strategy group. So in a sense, I'm going to bat this off to John Scampion, as I see he's still with us, to see if he's got anything to say. But I think it's important. It's an important issue for that group to address. I don't think there are any very simple answers to it. I mean, frankly, if there were simple answers, they'd have been put in place years ago. All these issues have been around for a long time, and do not forget that the problem with the attraction and the footfall in the town centre for local shops is not unique to Stratford. I mean, town centre activity has been declining, as you know, all over the country. And I mean, to be rather gloomy about this, I suspect this has been emphasised by the realisation during the COVID crisis, and particularly the lockdown, of how much more can be done by shopping online, how much more shopping online there is, and how convenient that is for a lot of people. So, I mean, my suspicion is that the prospects for the retail sector in Stratford Town Centre, as elsewhere, are not that brilliant. I mean, on the other hand, what Stratford has got going for us is that it is a major tourist attraction. And that has always been the case. I mean, the truth is, there's a town the size of Stratford that has only been able to accommodate, until recently, the presence of big shops like BHS and Debenhams and so on, because of the visitor economy. I mean, if the visitors weren't coming here, then those shops would not have been in Stratford in the first place. But I mean, the town has to develop its own niche, and hopefully this is something that the business improvement district, Stratford, will look at and come up with some positive solutions. I mean, the other point that I think needs to be made is that it is a bit chaotic in the town centre at the moment. And again, I have not got the facts available to me, but it does seem to me that with restrictions on foreign travel, that the domestic tourist attractions, including Stratford, potentially become more attractive The result of which, as far as I can see, the past few weeks has been a lockup of a gridlock of the town centre at significant parts of the weekend, and clearly that is not an attractive proposition either. So yeah, look, there are no easy answers, but there are challenges ahead. And I think everybody's aware of the challenges. Whether there is a political will to take through acceptable solutions is another matter.
Thank you very much. Ian Fradgley.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding that on July the 19th, or quite quickly after July the 19th, the County Council are going to pull out everything that they've done in the Sound Centre to restore it to how it was. So I think you will find that that will be happening at the beginning of the week of the 19th. They were going to pull it out in June, until obviously the date was changed. I know that the District Council are preparing themselves for a rush of people wanting pavement licences, because obviously there's quite a few businesses taking advantage of the pavements to put their wares out for selling coffee, etc. So they will have. I don't think they've had to apply or pay for specifically the locations they've got at the moment, that they will have to in the future. Of course, the other problem is if you start putting tables and chairs on the pavement and you've taken all the COVID measures away, there then comes a position as to is there going to be enough room for the pedestrians to get by? I don't know the answer to that. I did ask the question at the District Council the other day and I haven't been given an answer.
Oh, well,
Okay.
Answers. Sandra?
If the bid to pedestrianise both High Street and Bridge Street is successful, what provision is made for disabled drivers? Because in both there are sufficient numbers of places for people like me actually not to have to walk a great distance carrying bags from particular locations, which I can't do. And also we have the opportunity to pull up on yellow lines outside a shop just to go in and collect what we've bought. And it's it's a tremendous restriction on people with disabled badges that there's nowhere at the moment, certainly on High Street, to be able to do that. And what alternative spaces are being considered if this pedestrianisation is successful?
Can I respond to that? Can I also say, in relation to what Ian Fradgley's saying, I don't think the lifting of COVID restrictions in July the 19th or even in August is the end game as far as we're concerned at Stratford. I think it will be a setback if the existing arrangements are abandoned, as I said, and that we go back to the status quo ante. But that would not be the end of the that would not be the end of the story, because I think there's a long way to go on that. And I think we have consistently supported improved access for pedestrians and cyclists in High Street, where we've advocated and has been adopted in the neighbourhood plan the idea of an experimental, I won't call it closure, an experimental scheme along the lines of that which we have in Henley Street, which is pedestrianised part of the day and open to traffic for the rest. And also we've said we want to see changes in Bridge Street. And I think those are both things we need to hang on to as a society, as a Stratford society. And I think as far as the issue of the physical disability is particularly, but I appreciate it applies to all disabilities, but particularly for access for disabled people, Sandra really has my confidence that the disabled groups in this area are extremely well represented through particularly Elizabeth Dixon, who is associated with and gets involved in all proposed changes and has done throughout the COVID pandemic to protect the interests of disabled drivers. And I'm sure that is the case now. And although I wouldn't suggest it's not something to be concerned about, I'm quite sure that she will make effective representations. And I would suggest to Sandra, and indeed anybody else who has essentially a blue badge, that what perhaps she should do is, if she hasn't already made contact, make contact with Elizabeth and build up the strength of that particular lobby.
Thank you. I think we should press on. I've always thought that transport issues are central to the core of the Stratford Society's raison d'etre, so I hope they'll go on. I'm passing over the planning issues. I alluded to them earlier, and Kevin no doubt will, at his first opportunity, talk further about them. I think the concern right now is there appears to be a sort of city being built beyond a bridge on one side of the town. It's remarkable. There's a great hole of earth. Very strange world we live in. So if I move then to 5D, John, have you got anything you'd like to add to your clear and precise report on the working group on the historic spine? John, you are unfortunately still muted, I believe.
Well, I think I got a message that said the host had muted me for some reason. I haven't said anything so far, but there we are. I think I'm all right now. It's in the report mainly, but just to remind ourselves that the historic spine is a concept in the town centre that's been with us now for quite some years. And the whole purpose of having a recognition of the historic spine is in turn to recognise that most of the key buildings and the key activities of the town historically have run along that set of roads from the top of Bridge Street, along High Street, Chapel Street, Church Street, and into Old Town, finishing at Holy Trinity. And we have sometimes dubbed it the route that is the route from Shakespeare's birthplace to his grave. But it's a key part of the town, and the society have been responsible, to their credit, I think, I'm sure, for these years, to make sure that it is recognised and protected. And we've done 2 or 3 things. We were instrumental in pursuing and making sure it was adopted, the shop front scheme, in which a key number of shop fronts were improved and their design made much more architecturally and historically kind of valid. We were instrumental too in pushing for some time, not always popular, for the closure of High Street. And perhaps the third thing is that we've introduced this Plaque Scheme, about which I'll say a few more words in a moment. And I think it's important that as we go forward, we recognise the importance of the spine and continue to think about what other initiatives we want to pursue and recommend to promote it. As to the Plaque Scheme, basically, the intention there was to pick out a number of the key buildings along this spine route. Some 20, 25 we thought would be the appropriate number in the first flush of doing this, in order to recognise and celebrate the importance of these buildings, some of which, because their appearance over the years has been changed, sort of belies the true origins of the buildings. And so it's very important to have to have some information readily available to actually describe what the building is and has been. And what we've done over a period now of, I suppose, 3 or 4 years, we've laid down some 10 plaques along the length of the spine. Many of the buildings are easily recognised, and the plaques are there to be seen. There are some absences. We haven't got plaques where you'd probably want to have them. And what we have been working on for the last year or so is trying to find some funding and to put in place a number of other plaques in order to be able to have along the spine probably most of those buildings which you would think were important recognised by them. And people have seen them, they're there. You can see what they're like and how helpful and significant they are. And we've got about 6 or 7 it is, which we have identified to go forward to the next stage. That's my phone, I think. I'll just sort of deal with that, excuse me.
Well, to cut...
Yes, I'm sorry about that. We've got...
Money has been produced from the society so that we can put in some more plaques. And under Bob Bierman's splendid nagging, we've also provided money to do some deochronology at around £1,000 for a plaque, £1,000 for dendrochronology, so we can learn more about the wood and the actual age of the buildings. And I think this has been one of the great successes.
But can I just, Brian, may I just finish by saying that we've got, of those 7 plaques that we've identified to sort of complete the first phase of this, we've now got some movement, some commitment on 4 of them. So we are making more progress. Yeah. And I'm pretty confident that those 7 in one shape or another will go forward in the next 6 months or so.
Absolutely terrific. Well, you get the feeling, we've let it run on, but transport is a central issue, the state of the town, and we're rather, of course, in some difficulty with that because we're all in the middle of a national recession of unparalleled proportions. Right. There's nothing else. I feel we should move to election of members. Now, I have in front of me a sheet of paper with all these names on there. Many of you will not have that in front of you, so I'll briefly go through it. What the committee has done is produce a slate which involves quite a few changes. The president, who is entirely onward, let me emphasise that, and I've done it for some years, I'm stepping down after a long run. It's a good thing, you need some new blood, but Kevin is planned to step up to become your president. Vice presidents, well, they remain the same. So the first change we're proposing is Kevin to replace me as president. The second change is that Lindsay will step up as chairman from being deputy chairman. That's a key position, and Lindsay has demonstrated in spades over the last 2 years his commitment to this. And I can only thank him and John most sincerely. So the second suggestion is Lindsay. We need a deputy chairman, and John's Campion, who's been a stalwart for many years, has agreed to have his name put forward to become our new deputy chairman. Our secretary, dear Olga, who's the only young person on the thing, and looking very elegant, I must admit, this afternoon in the warmth, will continue as secretary. And of course, Jonathan Craig is stepping down as treasurer, and Jonathan Devereux, who appears to be sitting in the pub next to the Clopton Bridge, but I think it's a still picture, is being put forward as treasurer, an important role. The suggestion on membership front is we have persuaded Deary and Fradgley to come back to pick up the pieces that he left and sort that out. And you heard Jonathan Craig suggest how that can be done. Those are the office holders, as they're called. On the ordinary members front, Jan Tracy and Steve Turner, and Steve was with us, I can't see him at the moment, but Jan is there, and Steve, there they are. They're going to take over this transport portfolio. Important that, if you agree to vote them in. Planning has been a problem for some while, but fortunately Margaret, who's with us, yes, there she is, Margaret is going to take over planning. And I think we're going to hear much more about planning because we have a lot of difficulties with the planners all over the town and out with the town. Bob Bierman remains as our historian and general knowledge, more knowledge about the town than all of us put together. And we welcome back Diana. Now I saw Diana somewhere. Yes, hello Diana. Welcome back from the Royal Overseas League in London, where she has been and was honoured by the Queen as a result of that effort. And she's going to tell the court of brief for the environment. So Diana is a new person, and Ian will continue with civic affairs. Lindsay will continue with events. John Scampion will focus on the town centre, a job that is continuous. And Wendy, who I've not mentioned before, and I'm not sure I've ever met Wendy, but probably have, is going to take over publicity. So the team we have suggested to you at the AGM will have as President Kevin, then the core office holders of Lindsay MacDonald and John Scampion as chairs effectively, Olga as our secretary, Jonathan Devereux taking over from Jonathan Craig, Ian Fradgley rejoining us, Jan Tracy and Steve Turner on transport, Margaret has taken over planning, Margaret Kunn, Bob Bierman, Diana, welcome back Diana, and Ian Prosser and Wendy Ryder. And so, having laid it all out and in effect suggested you vote for them, may I put it to you that we accept this slate of candidates. I see more hands up than hands down. Ah, one in the dark. Okay, thank you and welcome. The next item on the agenda is a vote of thanks. That is basically thanking all of us who have worked for some years, for long times, for short times, for the Stratford Society. I think it is essential to understand that this has been quite well planned in the sense that a number of us feel it is time to turn us over and start again. And under any other business, does anybody have any specifics? Ah, Lindsay has something he'd like to say. You are
muted, Lindsay. You're muted.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank you, Brian, for the wonderful contribution that you've made to the Society over so many years. I believe you were first appointed as president in 2004. And so that's 17 years that you've been in this role of guiding and assisting and bringing your wisdom to what we do. And in that time, 5 chairmen have come and gone, I believe. So you've been a very steadying influence there. And I would now like to propose to nominate you for election as an honorary member of the Stratford Society. This is the highest honour that the Society can bestow on anyone, And at present, we don't have any honorary members, I believe. So you are undoubtedly an outstanding candidate for such a thing. In the Constitution, Section 3, it says, honorary membership may be conferred on any person considered by the Society to have made an outstanding contribution to its objects. Honorary members shall be elected by an annual or special general meeting and shall have the rights of ordinary members, but shall be exempt from the payment of subscriptions. Just for those of you who don't know Brian's background, I'd just like to quickly review. Brian is a person of outstanding stature professionally. His PhD was from the University of Bristol. His academic research into the effect of the environment, particularly on the annual cycle of change in day length, on breeding in birds and mammals. And this has led to over 400 scientific papers in journals and conference proceedings. He's a fellow of the Royal Society and made many contributions to them. He was Vice Chancellor of the University of Warwick and oversaw its great rise in standards to bring it up to the top echelon of universities in the country. Brian was knighted in 1992. He was the founding chair of the Arts and Humanities Research Council, or AHRC as we know it. And he was chair of the Teacher Training Agency and also its successor, the Training and Development Agency for Schools. And for many years, he's been visiting professor in zoology at the University of Oxford and has been working with colleagues there in revising the whole academic curriculum for teaching in zoology. So nearer to Stratford, he was governor of the Royal Shakespeare Theatre for a whole decade, from 2008 to 2018. So really in every activity and everything that he's been involved in, he's been outstanding, made wonderful contributions. And we are all in his debt, I think, and most grateful for all that he's contributed to us. So with that outline, I'd like to now to nominate Brian for election as an honorary member of the Stratford Society. Do I have a seconder, please? Right, John Freeland, thank you. And all those in favour, please raise your hands. Right, I think that's unanimous. So thank you everyone, and congratulations to Brian.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I always hate these things. They're always terrible. But it's very good that John should support me and second it, I think. Having purchased or tried to purchase a fair bit of wine from his company over the years, on a regular basis, I have to say it's never been very expensive wine. Perhaps that's just an inevitable effect. With no Kevin, I think I'm going to pretty well wrap this up, actually, and we'll ask him to do his work when he returns and gives us a virtual lecture. But I think the thing I would like to leave us with is these town societies, like many organisations, go up and down. The Shakespeare Club has gone extinct twice and been come back. Very few of these, what you might call charitable bodies in towns, do well for long periods of time. And we have been through a slow decline over the last few years for a variety of reasons. And it's not due to lack of energy. I think it's a lack of finding new people who are prepared to play a role. But we thought back in the summer that this change of guard also gives the new committee a carte blanche. If as a result you change everything we do and move in a different direction, fine. That's what we've got to do. What I think we cannot do is just hang on to everything as it were. It's not to say that what we've done is poor, but we need some new life to stimulate the town going forward. And I can only, on behalf of myself and all the other members of the committee who on this particular occasion are stepping down, wish you well. The money you have means you can have regular meetings, and I think it would be good to have regular meetings somewhere and not appear to be too penny pinching about it. We even at one stage had committee meetings in the public bar of a pub in town, which never really proved to be as satisfactory as we had hoped. And what we did was we saved tuppence while we still had £13,000 in the bank. I don't suggest we blow it all, but we've given away some thousands to John Scampion and Bob Bierman to improve the historic spine. Planning will always be an important factor, and our weakness in planning, I think, has stemmed really from the immense damage that has been done to local government. I think the stripping of money out and its diversion largely into a medical system has been one of the saddest parts of the last 10 years. And we have weakened local government to a great extent. Governments in the centre always pick on local government. It's a tradition, it's an easy shot, but it isn't very clever because people give great time, such as the Fradgeleys, Ian and Jenny. They have been stalwarts to us, but also done enormous amount of work as volunteers on the county council. So I see planning and re-establishing planning links, if possible. And I think that's the one thing, Margaret, that somehow we've got to do again. We've got to find people. But Kevin knows the doors to open. And he's pretty damn good at it, and he knows what he's doing. And in John, you have a serious professional who understands the way local government works, which I certainly don't. So I wish you well on planning. I wish you well on transport, which is, in my view, in this town, nothing like as bad as everybody makes out. And I think, on the whole, most of the moves have been negative, not positive. Of course, the place fills up on the bank holiday Mondays for 3 a year, but there are the other 362 days of the year. I think the other things are fairly straightforward. What we need to do is obviously get a good programme going again. And in that regard, Lindsay has done a marvellous job with these virtual lectures. And as soon as we can get a suitable place where we can all meet again, then I think that should be. And that's where I will be there, loyally supporting. And despite what is said, I shall not kill the direct debit to the Stratford Society. And with that, is there nothing else? I will close the meeting and we can go off. I don't think there's anything much to do this evening from what I gather, though television has been going on about things for a long time. Last word from Sandra.
I may have misunderstood you, Brian, but can I just set the record straight with regard to the Shakespeare Club? It is by no means extinct. It's had a full programme of Zoom meetings throughout the autumn and spring season. We've considerably increased our membership as a result of Zoom, which has been a positive. And our new chair, our new president rather, is Lena Orlin, who is a woman of considerable stature in the Shakespeare community as a professor of Georgetown University. So we are very much alive and kicking, and certainly not extinct.
As well, I've been a member, and my wife has had much to do with the
Yes, yes, very much valued.
So I'm well aware of it. What I did observe was that it has, over its 250 years, gone through a number of cycles. At the moment, it appears to be on the up. So how it is that we can all compete against the National Association of Decorative and Fine Arts, which manages to get 600 or 700 people signed up for it, is a challenge that has exercised myself and my wife over many years. Thank you all for coming to this AGM, and thank you very much, Lindsay, for organising it, and also thank Olga. All the best.
Thank you for chairing
Goodbye.
so effectively, Brian. Thank you very much.
Cheerio.